Alrighty, so the new Ratatoskr boss is here, and I wanted to make a floor 1 guide first, because obviously this is going to be the setup. You're going to have your team correct and everything like that to make sure that you can even make it to further on floors. So I'm going to just focus on floor 1. I'm hoping to have a floor 2 guide out maybe the same day that this comes out, maybe a little bit later depending on how well the creation process goes for the video. But either way, let's talk about the team first and foremost. I'm going to have, little chapters and stuff like that on the timeline for the video and everything, so you can skip to where you need to go if you need to. By all means, this is supposed to be for information, so I don't really care about the views or anything. Just use it for a helpful resource. But first and foremost, this is the team. It's pretty specific. There's not a whole lot you can actually sub out here. I have heard that you can use a fairy team for floor 1 and get away with beating it. I don't know what the fairy team is. I've not seen anyone use it yet, but this is the team that can actually beat all the way through floor 3. So obviously I think this is the best choice. It's a little odd, and there's a lot of RNG in play here. It's really early, of course. This boss has been out. This is the first week that it's out on global, so obviously it only has room for improvement. There could be new characters that come out in the future that make this thing way, way, way easier. So for the card set that we're using, I'm using the deer one because it gives you 10% basic stats. That's basically the only reason. He doesn't have anything to do with freezing, but we're using Meliodas, the new God Meli. Obviously, there is April Fool's art going on right now is the time of me recording this. If you watch this in the future, there could potentially already be better teams and stuff like that out. So feel free to look around, shop around, find other YouTubers who have made videos on it. Try to get as much information as you can, because this thing's probably going to be hard for quite a while. So anyways, God Meli is your DPS unit. The rest of the characters on this team, not a whole lot of DPS. I have a 6/6 King, I have a 6/6 Merlin. Their ultimates do okay, but it's kind of hard to rely on just these characters using their ultimates to do damage, whereas basically every turn, sometimes it doesn't happen if he doesn't apply debuffs and stuff, you can basically get all creation pretty consistently every turn, or at least every other turn, and you can use his moves to deal damage, if not damage cap, which on floor 1 is 40%, and you can basically take that all the way to the bank. So, the Merlin is basically just here for the shock debuff. She has a ranged shock debuff, which is essential because later on in phase 3 of floor 1, you do have to worry about using melee and range skills, which is a bit unfortunate. The King, on the other hand, has you have to have his Holy Relic. His Holy Relic makes it to where if you use an AoE skill with him, it applies a bleed. And that's important because his AoE skill is normally just a weak point skill, but you need shock, bleed, and poison on your team to be able to function in this demonic beast. So his single target card is a poison. His single target is ranged. His AoE is melee, so that does come into to play, of course. His Abyss ultimate can be really nice. Like I said, I do have him 6/6 at this point, and there's been a couple of times where the Abyss has been really nice, but it's not over the top crazy. My Meli is only 1/6. My Liz is only 2/6. Liz is here basically just for healing, and she has a buff removal card on her AoE, or it's part of her Flood card. Her passive makes it to where it removes debuffs or buffs, and you're going to need that for phase 2. So the gear that I have, everybody's on HP defense, or well, HP sets except for Meli. Because he's your DPS, you want him to do as much damage as you can. So he's on an attack crit. He can hold his own. He does fine. He gains defense related stats and stuff like that when he cleanses off, if he doesn't just purge everything. And then for the gear, the sub gear for the team, King and Elizabeth are going to be on crit resistance sets because they already have high crit defense, or actually they already have high crit resistance, so it makes it even harder for them to get crit. Whereas Merlin, on the other hand, I think her crit resistance is only 80%. It's 86 or something like that at level 100 SA6. So we're giving her crit defense gear so that way she can tank the crits even more. We also are giving her the tier link. I do have a 6/6 tier. I don't think that that's necessary, but the higher level your tier is, the higher level his unity is, which means that he's going to give your unknown or Ragnarok character more crit defense. So that is going to help you tank. Mainly, he goes for single targets and stuff like that on your Elizabeth. But, you know, every once in a while he'll try to attack, you know, other characters and stuff like that. And Merlin, definitely the weakest of the bunch. So that is the team setup. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. I have already beaten floor 1 twice, but I've written down everything that I need to know about, like, the mechanics and stuff like that. You can see that we did beat floors 1 and 2. I'm not going to be worried about floor 3 for the moment because it's just super RNG. There are passives that he applies to himself on certain floors, certain phases. I think floor 1 he only gains a passive. There's 2 different passives that he can choose from on phase 3. So I'll be honest, I don't know which one is the better one to roll. I know that in the early phases, or like the early days of like bird and deer and stuff like that, you would have to worry about those passives and everything like that, and some people would even re-roll their run just to get a better passive. But I don't know which ones are best or, you know, most desirable in this scenario just yet. So first thing you're going to notice is that we are attack sealed and ultimate sealed. The big thing about this boss is that you have to move him to the different pillars on the field to be able to remove buffs and stuff like that, or like the debuffs that he puts on you that are gray at least. Basically, if he stays in one spot for too long, things are just going to get worse. He has a stance skill that he can put up if he's on a certain pillar for too long. He can heal himself if he's on a pillar for too long. You basically just want to consistently move him to different pillars as you're dealing damage to him. Phase 1, not too bad. You basically are just worrying about moving him and then dealing damage. Phase 2 is where it starts to actually ramp up. So the notes that I have for floor 1, phase 1 is the first pillar, you will move him to it if he has a shock debuff on. So, first and foremost, you want to shock him so that way he can move pillars. The other Merlin card is a defense-related stat lower. He can't be defense-related stat lowered, so we're just going to get rid of that out of our hand. I don't like to waste the King card because you need this for poison, so I'm going to move the Elizabeth card, use it, so that way I can get her some ultimate move gauge, push her towards her ultimate so that way we can heal with it. But as soon as we get him moved to a different pillar, you'll see that our attack-related and ult seals are going to be removed off of us, which means we can actually start dealing some damage. Okay, so pillar 2 is the poison one. So if he has poison on him, he will move to pillar 2. If he has bleed, he will move to pillar 3. So just know that, you know, you'll have to use the poison single target card from King to put poison on him. He can only have one debuff on at a time as well. So if you shock and then you poison, the poison's going to persist. It'll overwrite the shock. So be very careful with the cards that you're using and everything. So another thing is that once you get him below a certain amount of HP, I'm not 100% sure what it is. I know, like on Bird, if it's like 30% HP, like if he has less than that, he gains a Dissolve debuff. He does kind of the same thing. I'm not 100% sure what the actual percentage of HP is for it. So just take that into consideration that at a certain point you're not going to be able to like ult rush or anything, because if you hit him it dissolves you, but if you kill him it doesn't dissolve you. So we have all creation at this point because he applies a new buff, or a new debuff called Food Poisoning, which is basically just a new version of Corrosion. You can see additional damage equal to 5% of the max HP at the end of every turn, and it lasts for 5 turns, so it's pretty persistent. He can apply multiple per turn depending on the cards that he uses. You can use cleanses on that if you really want to, but just be careful because, you know, if they stack too high, it's going to be a lot of extra damage that you're going to be taking per turn. So because we have all creation, we have a single target. Let's go ahead and hit him. We can't do over 40% damage, and because he is on the left pillar, we need to basically move him. So I'm going to use the AoE from King here. That's going to put bleed on him and move him to the rightmost pillar. And at this point, I think I'm just going to... is this the defense related? It is. So we're going to get rid of the defense related because it doesn't do anything for us. I'm going to use one of the Liz cards to not only heal us a little bit, but it's also going to give us an extra ultimate move gauge because of her passive, which means that we're going to, you know, get her ult. So try to play this as safe as possible. Obviously, you're going to have to improvise sometimes. There is a lot of RNG involved with these like cards that you need to use. Melee is basically your lone DPS. It can be quite troublesome, so just take it slow. You know, don't get too frustrated with it. I know that it can be annoying. That's the biggest reason why I'm not worried about floor 3 at the moment, is because it's not worth the heartache to me. So yeah, his ultimate, as you can see, on phase 1, it's he like calls in the Bird, and the Bird will stun a single character. On phase 2, he calls in Nidhogg, and it's a spike card, and then back to the Bird on floor 3, or phase 3, sorry. So because we already have our ultimate, I'm going to go ahead and use it. We are going to go ahead and apply the poison debuff here. And I think I'm going to go ahead and throw one of these heal cards out and one of these melee cards. The thing is, you have to do a balancing act where you don't want to clog your hand up with too many debuff cards and stuff because you need melee cards to deal damage, but you don't want to clog your hand up with too many melee cards because you need to also move him from different pillars. So it looked like it was above 30% there that he gained this dissolve. I think it was below 50% maybe. I'm not 100% sure. If you know the exact number, feel free to let me know and comment down below. I'm sure it'll help somebody out. So, last things I have wrote here are Melee's the lone DPS, Merlin is for shock, King is for bleed and poison, Liz is for healing and buff cancel. That's pretty much it for this phase. So, something that I like to do for phase 2 is to have melee cards already ready to go, because that phase is a little bit more troublesome because he's going to gain these buffs, and it's nice to have a buff cancel in hand, but if you don't, you basically just have to push DPS really hard. Luckily, I do have a buff cancel, so I think we'll be okay for the most part. So what I'm going to do here is use the Merlin ult. This should kill because it's 6/6 and he has a little over 10% HP left. I'm going to use the Liz card after that to make sure that I gain ultimate move gauge for the rest of the team. That'll actually help me draw King's ultimate, which is an AoE, which will put bleed on, and then I am going to get rid of this defense-related stat buff, and I think I'm just going to move a melee card so that way we go ahead and pull his ultimate as well. We already have a shock and a poison in hand, which is good, so we're in a pretty good position here. I did not kill with the Merlin, so we're going to have to stall for a second here. As you can see, I did not move him, so that might be a little bit of an issue. I think he has to stay on the same spot for more than 2 turns, but I could be wrong there. So a little bit of a blunder there. So we do get attack sealed and everything. So we're going to go ahead and I guess hit him with the shock so that way we can move him. At this point, I'm going to move these Liz cards, I guess, so that way I can try to get her ultimate back. Close to killing there, but not quite. She obviously hit, so she got dissolved, which is a little unfortunate, but he's like super low HP, so whatever I get here should be able to kill. We actually do gain a shock debuff back, which is good. I don't necessarily need too many debuff cards for this next phase, so I think I'm just going to try to use the... let's heal up. We don't have a cleanse at the moment. I think I'm just going to use the shock debuff again and get her ultimate in hand for more damage. Well, I don't know. I think I'm not going to go for the ultimate, actually. So let's heal. Use the shock debuff to kill him because that should be able to kill. And then I don't want her ultimate in hand. I think we kill here, so I'm just going to go ahead and X those cards out. So now we're back at full health. This is enough to kill. We're going to move into the next phase. So phase 2 is where it gets a little tricky, because if you attack the left or right pillar, or it might just be the pillars that he's not on, I'm not 100% positive on that, he will actually gain these little blue buffs, and they are called like demonic beast energy or something like that. If he gains 6 of those buffs, he will cleanse them off of himself and gain a ton of attack related stats, meaning you do not want him to get all of those buffs. So, if possible, it's best to use single target cards to attack him, but if you end up using AoE cards, make sure that if you use 2 AoEs, you're going to cleanse his debuffs or his buffs off with the buff cancel from Liz's attack card after that, because if you don't, it's going to be a bad time. So, because we already have all creation, I'm going to go ahead and hit him with a single target. That should deal pretty much the most damage. I mean, his ultimate does really good damage as well, but here nor there. We're going to use the King ultimate with the AoE because it's going to put bleed on him and he'll move pillars. You still want to worry about moving him from pillar to pillar. Because the single target isn't actually going to put any buffs on him, I'm going to go ahead and use the Merlin ultimate. That'll be 2 AoEs that were in use right now, and he's going to have bleed on. So we're going to use the attack the attack from Liz to get rid of those buffs at this point. So you see, no buffs get added. The AoE goes off because we hit those left and right pillars, gains 2 buffs. If you get 6 of those, we're done for. We're cooked. So you make sure that you either have enough damage turn 1, like if you have a ton of melee cards in hand, spam them. Or if you have the King ult in hand, last time I tried this, I was able to get 3 melee cards off and the King ult, and the Abyss was able to kill him, even though the Abyss, like, the actual ultimate itself didn't do that much damage. The Abyss was able to kill because it just, Abyss is pretty crazy, so. He has 3 buffs on at this point, but he's pretty low, so we should be able to kill him this turn. I think I'm going to throw out the AoE here. And then if that doesn't kill, I think I'm just going to go ahead and throw the ult. If it does, if we don't end up using the ult, we're going to waste the ultimate move gauge that we would have gained from the Liz ult here. But I'm going to go ahead and use it just to get it out of my hand. And then this is a shock, so I want to keep that. And we have 1 of each debuff. So I think I'm just going to throw away this Liz card. Because like I said, you want melee cards for DPS. You want the DOT cards for moving him to different pillars. So that's phase 2. Like I said, you can DPS it and just push through without having to worry about that mechanic if you have enough damage in your hand. But if you don't, make sure that you can, either don't do too many AoEs or make sure that you have a buff cancel in your hand. So this is the last phase of floor 1. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So we want to keep moving him around, of course, but you can see up here he has a damage reduction stack on him. The damage reduction seems to apply to the entirety of the pillars as well. So it's final damage minus 80%. As far as I can tell, it seems like you don't do that much damage to the pillars as well. So do note that if you need to get cards out of your hand or whatever, do that before you get rid of the damage reduction that he's putting on. To get rid of it, you have to move him to all 3 pillars. It doesn't matter if he starts on pillar 1, you'll have to move him back to pillar 1 at some point. So we're going to use the shock debuff right here to get him over to pillar 3. I'm going to go ahead and use this to go ahead and try to get that out of my hand. I'd love to keep this melee card, but we already have 1 AoE and an ultimate, so I think I'm going to waste that because it's just not worth, the hand space that it's taking up. The thing with this stage, though, is that pillar 1, the one on the left, gives him, I think it's ranged immunity, or ranged evasion. So you can see right up here, now that he's on this tile, he has ranged evasion, which means you have to use melee cards to deal damage to him, which means that if I tried to use the ranged single target card from King to put him on the middle tile, it will not work, it will get evaded. So I have to use an AoE, or I have to use King's AoE, which is a melee skill, to actually hit him. So, because he is immune to ranged, I also wouldn't be able to use this. You kind of don't want to use too many of the melee cards in general this early because of the fact that he has the damage reduction on. I'm going to get rid of this one anyway because it's just not worth having in my hand, and we already have all creation, so I'm going to try to get it out. I think I'm going to merge these and use it. That way I can go ahead and get King's ultimate because it's an AoE as well. And I could potentially use it to put the bleed on if I need it in the future. So I'm going to get rid of these bleed cards out of my hand. I think I'm going to merge these for some card space also. We're not going to really do that much damage here. You can see that even with all creation, we only do 100k. That damage reduction obviously is helping quite a bit. So once we move him to the rightmost pillar here, he is going to be immune to ranged or melee skills. So we have to use the ranged skills here, obviously. You kind of just want him to be in the middle pillar if possible. That way you can use whatever cards you want to actually get some damage out on him. But, that's easier said than done. So, he stuns the melee off here. It doesn't really matter because it's only 1 debuff. He's going to be able to cleanse that off. Merlin does have 1 food poisoning on at the moment. So, our last goal here is to put poison on him so that way we can move him to the middle pillar. So, let's do that. I think this is a shock debuff, so we have a bleed and a shock basically in hand already. I'm going to cleanse with Liz, or maybe I just try to cycle her ultimate here. So let's put the poison on, let's use the ultimate, and then let's just use both of these Liz cards to get them out of our hand, and it'll give us our ultimate back because she's going to gain an extra ultimate move gauge per card used because of her passive. So he now has poison, he's going to move to the middle. We're going to use those Liz cards to get them out of our hand, plus we're going to get our ultimate back so we can cycle ultimates even more. And now, once he moves to this middle pillar, you'll see that the final damage reduction buff, or it gets removed, yeah, so. Okay, we're in a pretty good spot here. Obviously, it's ideal to finish with as, you know, high of HP as you possibly can if you're planning on attempting additional floors. So make sure that if you can finish with like a Liz ultimate in hand, like as your first card or something like that, that you do so. So another thing to note is that these pillars can be killed. If they are killed, he will not be able to move to those pillars, which is really bad because if you don't get the cards that you need, or like you only have cards to move into the left pillar and it's gone, you can't move him at that point. So be very careful. If you can single target, it's ideal. But, you know, like I said, easier said than done. Some of this is just going to be all RNG. So I'm going to spam these ultimates because these ultimates really don't do that much. The Abyss will help quite a bit. I am going to put... that's actually going to put Bleed on him. I think I'm okay with that because we're gonna save these AoE cards with Melee. I'm gonna use this, and I'm even gonna merge those. So we'll have a ranged skill in hand for Melee to be able to deal damage while he's on this block over here. Luckily, the leftmost pillar will get it'll evade that. So as long as we don't like kill the middle pillar, that would be ideal because Melee's cards do a lot of damage. So here we go. Moving to the right, we have ultimate. We have a ranged skill in hand. We have the shock. We can move him over to the left pillar if we need to. We pull a poison as well, which is great. We even have a Liz card so we can get her ultimate back, which is good. He's attacking the Merlin there a little bit, which is bad, but you know, she's doing a decent job of tanking, so I don't have a cleanse to get rid of those, but luckily Melee gets rid of one. Let's go for... I pulled some Melee AoEs. I think what I'm going to do here is... Nah, I need to keep that. I'm going to use the AoE skill to do damage. I am going to put Shock on to move him to the left pillar. I'm going to use this card to get her ultimate, and I think I'm going to... I kind of want to ult, but I kind of don't at the same time because the ult hits all pillars. I think I can't use the AO or the single target cards with Melee because they're melee, so I kind of want to merge them, but I kind of don't at the same time because I might be able to kill next round. I think I'm just going to move like this, depending on how much damage we can deal, and if I... Oh yeah, we're in a pretty good spot here. I'm pulling Liz's ultimate here. He's moving to the left pillar. He has 22% HP at the moment, so we're going to be able to use the Liz card to heal. We're going to be able to use the Melee cards to kill, and then we should be chilling. He has one debuff on at the moment, so Melee should cleanse that, gain all creation, and we're going to do more than enough to kill. You can see he even took a little bit of damage from the Abyss that we still have on the field at the moment, so that's good. Melee gets stunned, doesn't matter. He only has one debuff on, so it gets cleansed. So we heal, we single target, and then we're just going to spam these cards as well because we're in a spot where we're at full HP. I don't need to do anything else other than kill here. So there it is. That's floor 1. It's quite a lot to take in. Obviously, as you play it, as you get more used to the mechanics and stuff like that, you're going to be able to clear it faster. Like I said, it's unfortunate, but I don't think that there's really much alternative team comp-wise unless you're just trying to clear floor 1. I don't know what that fairy team is at the moment, but I might try to look into that and make a video on it just for that, you know, the people who maybe don't have this set up or just want to clear floor 1 each week for a little while or whatever the case may be. But we're in a good spot here. I'm basically, you know, this is the ideal scenario for me to move straight into floor 2. I'm at full HP. Everything is chilling, so... Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any sort of extra insights or anything like that on the fight, leave them down in the comments below. I'm sure it'll help somebody out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you guys later on.